Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story, where each weekday we offer a brief lesson from a section of today's reading in the One-Year Bible. My name's Stephen Mizell, and Jay Rivenbark and I are joined by Wendy Korbusieski this week. Today we're in Exodus 34 and the first part of 35, and we're talking about how God is gracious, how God is faithful, and we specifically talk about, his steadfast love and how he is loyal to us, his grace, and how that should raise our level of obedience, not eliminate it. And there's a lot we can all glean from this, so I hope you grab your Bible and a pen and paper. Let's have a conversation around the Word of God today. Hey everybody, welcome to the February 12th edition, One Single Story, where we're looking at Exodus 34 and 1 through 35 and 9. We're talking about some characteristics of God, that grace is God's chosen response to repentance, really is kind of what we're going to spend some time on. And I'm just curious, was there a piece of this that I maybe don't have a question for that you wanted to make sure we hit on today?
I was captured by 34:8 by Moses' plea. Just how beautiful, just the whole image of that, the mental image that I created, that scene where he's just throwing himself on the ground and saying, Lord, if you don't go with us, please, if you found any favor in me, please go with us. I just thought that was a beautiful scene. I don't know if that's how you read the Bible. I have a movie playing in my head when I read, and I could just imagine that image there. The other thing that caught my attention, and I guess it's because I read the Bible a little differently now because I'm always looking for Jesus. And then the fact that Moses had to wear the veil over his face, just the use of that word kind of sent me mentally on a trail to the actual veil in the temple, and that how Jesus would tear that veil so that we could have direct access to God. It had to be in place then for Moses to protect people from direct access to God, at least the afterglow of his presence that was on Moses. So I was just captivated by that piece in the reading.
Well, there were lots of things that caught my attention. One was at least twice in this reading where the Lord said not to make treaties with the people where you're going to go, where you're going to reside, because in essence, you'll become like them. You'll be assimilated into their culture and their environment. And he intended for the Israelites, his people, to influence the culture to the point they became like them rather than vice versa.
Obviously, this big concept of grace here is so deep. I think just having observed, I'm a very reflective person to think back over my life, how I've seen words used. And the two ends of the spectrum about grace is it's a curse word, right? You're too easy on people, hyper grace, or it is abused. There are people who just exclude everything. And I think one of the pictures that we get here in this passage is that grace doesn't lower the standard. That's not what happens. Grace doesn't lower the standard. Grace is intended to restore the relationship. The standard remains the same. It just grace is the restoration to what's happening, and that has been a journey for me. We all come from different backgrounds, but that's been a real journey for me, because in the holiness movement, they would have ridiculed people because they thought they were too easy about it. And then as I've gotten older and been in a lot of other circles, I've seen how I felt like it was abused, on the other end of that. And I've come to understand, for me, that grace was not the elimination of a standard. It was a restoration of a relationship so that I could again live by the standard.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, what stands out to you about God's self-description? He describes himself.
Mm.
What jumps out to you about that?
One, I think, is like one of the most quoted descriptions of God. If anybody wants to describe him, that's like the go-to. You're going to land there. And for him to describe himself as compassionate, gracious, slow to be angry, abounding in love is just the underscore of who he is. And I think it plants the idea that, grace is not relegated to the New Testament. I feel like we talk about grace more when we're talking about New Testament era, but really it existed then because it exists in God. That's who God is. And it's just like this whole idea of grace is not a new idea. It's who is central to who God is.
Yeah, literally, it's his character, and he's given us direct insight. He's like, in case you got any questions or didn't understand who I am, let me, in a summary form, give this to you. And he even addresses the issue of iniquity and rebellion and sin, which all have their own implications. And he's given us some deep insight to who he is and his willingness to love. And you talked about grace, to forgive, with ultimately the restoration of the relationship in mind.
The thing we have to understand is about God is that judgment is real, but it's not primary.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I see about it. Like he leads with mercy, not wrath. It doesn't, but the mercy doesn't mean that judgment's not present.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not what he leads with. Gosh, and today's reading, just a lot of things that are going on in life right this minute. Things I've tried to learn to practice over a number of years. The times where I've led with wrath.
Same. Or parented.
Yeah. But parenting is the most common place where you're going to do. You come in like a wrecking ball.
Yeah. Come in hot.
Fire hot,
Mm-hmm.
and I can, just in the last few weeks, I've given my kids advice. We were having conversation, about parenting and responses. And I was saying to them, don't discipline angry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, not because this is what I always practiced, but because what I've realized is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Don't discipline in anger, because I have never disciplined in anger and walked away and thought,
felt good
you
about
did good,
it.
buddy.
Yeah.
You fixed them,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've been other times where I've disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
I'm navigating a situation right now where, like, there are consequences, but the navigation of it, the lead
Is different.
it can't be.
Yeah, I agree, because I too have been guilty of, whether it be discipline, dealing with children, or even in marital relationship issues. Like I said, just coming in hot, it was about the issue, and the relationship suffered because of it. And rather than, at least now, I'm not saying I always get it right, but leading in would say, things like, I care about you. I want you to hear this is about the issue. It's not about the relationship, and how I feel about you, but this needs to be talked about or addressed. But when you lead in with mercy, I think it gives people a place of security in relationship, and the ability to listen to your heart. And oftentimes I will say that I want you to listen to my heart, what I'm wanting to say, to deal with, so that you can preserve the relationship. And that's what God's saying here. I want to preserve the relationship, but we have to have this conversation.
Right.
That's why I refer a lot of parents. I've had people come to me with those kind of parental issues, like what can I do differently? I refer them to this particular lady that I follow on social media, because she does exactly that. It's discipline and parenting from a leadership perspective. Is you address the issue, but it has nothing to do with your relationship with your kid. And it has to be clear to the child. And I think that's how God deals with us. Like, I've got to discipline the issue, this consequence, but the relationship between us is still intact.
Right.
Let's go there.
The challenge for me in that is my personality is the issue is always the issue, right? It's never about you, right? I'm never mad at you. I'm maybe completely pissed off about the issue, but the thing that I've had to learn is that pretty much I'm the only one in the conversation, unless I'm talking to another 8, that receives it that way.
Yeah.
They receive it as, you hate me.
Right.
So I'm going to hate you back. And I mean, you guys have been around long enough that you probably have seen some of that growth in me, where I would just come with a torch, and but I was only mad about the issue. I wasn't mad at you. I didn't dislike you. I wasn't going to fire you, but your response might be, he hates me, I'm quitting, and distinguishing that, and I think sometimes people have this view of God because he has had to deal with an issue, and we on our side impose on him, he must hate me because this was the consequence. No, he don't hate you. He really wants to be in relationship with you. Why don't you back up and figure it out, And so the hard part for me has never been the issue being the issue. It has been communicating that the issue is the issue, and slowing down long enough, either that I said it or to dial back the torch, so that I didn't, char somebody.
Burn it all down.
I still have the scars.
We won't talk about
Got skin damage.
Need a graft. You thought falling out of the tree was bad.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I've ever torched you bad enough that you would want to fall out of a tree again. I'm just saying. Am I right?
Correct.
How does grace motivate obedience?
I believe grace becomes, it changes the why we want to obey. Instead of obeying to earn a love, we understand through grace that we've already gotten it, that we've already received it, and that grace becomes the fuel for that obedience. I liken it to like a second chance. If your boss was just you were so burnt up with me, but you wanted to fire me, but you gave me a second chance. That grace becomes the motivator for why I want to do things better. And I think that's how it is with our obedience. It just fires you up to want to do things better because you got it.
I like the way you said it. It changes the why. It's not out of obligation or even commitment. It's not duty. When you recognize what grace is and how lavish it's been given to us, then you just like, now I want to serve. I want to surrender. I want to obey. I want to honor. I want to respect. I want to please because of the grace that's been extended. The motivation changes.
I think when you've experienced grace, you have to respond differently. The thing for me that I think I want to convey and I want to try to model is how holiness and grace go together, right? That grace should raise the standard, should raise your desire to want to do different. So you don't need grace a second time. I mean, not in the same fashion.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I should say. And it is, living in that tension is so hard. It's why churches in general, I think, lean one way or the other. They fall to the rigid holiness, legalistic side because it's easy to measure, or they fall to the grace side with no standards.
Everything goes.
And I find myself preaching, and I've come to realize this even in the world of social media. Algorithms are driven by extremes. So if I choose a lane, my views and everything would go up because I'm appealing to a particular group of people. But I constantly am living in the tension, and I'm pushing people to live in the tension, and between grace and holiness. And because what I want us to understand and what I feel, the weight I feel as a leader is, God has been so good to me. I have to extend grace. But I also have to help people understand that should raise the level of desire to live a holy life and a righteous life, And I think that's important. So why is generosity a natural response to forgiveness?
Generosity is going to flow from a heart that understands it's been given something far more valuable than it could ever repay. I've been given something that I couldn't do for myself. And so generosity is going to be the overflow of that. I kind of liken it to, like, if you were to go out to eat and it's time to pay the check and you found out somebody paid that check for you. The feeling of gratitude that you have, it just washes over you. It just like, wow, somebody loved me that much or cared about me that much to cover the price of my meal. But it fuels you to want to do that for somebody. I want somebody else to feel that just like I did. And so I think it's just like the natural conclusion to something that you've received.
Yeah, as it relates to this passage, there's some descriptions with people brought stuff and gave generously and abundantly. And he uses descriptions like whose hearts were stirred, their spirits were moved, they were willing, and they gave freely. The more you have received and you recognize that gift, grace, forgiveness, relationship, you said there's a natural outflow of generosity, whether it be time, resources, gift, talents, and abilities. You want to give back. You want to share what you have received. It becomes a cycle that repeats itself.
There would never be an amount I could give where I would feel like I had given back enough. Because one of the things I think grace does is it kind of loosens its grip on things like fear and even scarcity. And I don't think I've ever been a scarcity. I don't fall on that side of the ledger. I don't think ever, probably. Which is that has its flaws. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's always.
Yeah. I've told you several times I'd kill you.
Yeah, I don't fall on that side.
It doesn't scare you at all.
No, it doesn't. But I think that it should not. That's the thing grace should do is not just release our hands off of judgment, but it should release our hands off of so many other things to be able to freely pass it along to share and to help others because that's just a real critical piece of the puzzle is learning to practice generosity. I have this goal. I have a prayer that I pray. So I have a giving goal. And I'm not there right this moment. I'm not even close to what it is, but I have a giving goal. But the prayer I pray, and it's not every day because I don't pray through the same prayers every day, but I pray, God, allow me to get this so I can give this every year. I have a giving goal. I don't want to just do it one time. I want to be able to do it every year, And because I know I have received so much, I can never repay. But that's just one of the ways. It's one of the ways that I show back. Thank you for joining us again on this edition of One Single Story. Don't forget, the God who forgives is the God who restores. And we can rest in his forgiveness and his restoration. Hope you join us again on the next edition of One Single Story.